I really want to walk you through a couple of quick thoughts that I hope will help you leave here with some practical things to work on. Is that okay? When I started Leading Ladies Network in 2010, I was influenced by a couple of things that had happened in my life. Number one, I had run for and become the first woman at my university to be president of our student council. And it apparently was the first time in the history of Ghana that a woman had been elected president of a university student government system. I was excited because I was on the news, different media houses were interviewing me, there were articles written about the feat, but then the reality dawned on me. Why had it taken this long for this relatively smaller accomplishment to have happened? Each of us probably has something that has gone down in our lives that probably is the reason why we're on the path we're on. And I salute you if you fall into that category. But one of the things that I realized in my journey, I was very passionate about making sure more leaders were emerging. But I realized that if I were going to be effective, more effective at doing this, I needed to up-level myself. So I want to give you 3 strategies taken from our 10 modules StandOut Women's Leadership Program. And for those of you who are registered and here in the room tonight or today, we do have an opportunity to do the full 10 module program in April 2026. How many of you would want to do the full program? The challenge is, in doing these one-day events, the time is never enough, right? Some of these conversations need to be had over dinner, in our pajamas, while we're just talking off the record. So in April 2026, from April 23rd to the 26th, we'll be running our first fully residential experience for StandOut Women's Leadership Program here in Nairobi, Kenya. Does that excite you? Can you make some noise for that? So if you like what you've heard today, anything you've heard in any of what we've done, I would encourage you to sign up for our April 2026 session. So I titled my masterclass today, 3 Strategies to Help You Prepare for Prominence. I have the great pleasure of coaching, upskilling, leading, and supporting women at different levels over the years. Some of what I'm going to share with you is not that you don't really know, but sometimes we don't need to be taught, we need to be reminded. And part of what I want you to leave here today with is somewhat of a skeleton of a plan. So the 3 strategies, I'll just tell it to you up front. I'm going to talk to you about these 3 things. Number 1, building your kitchen cabinet. Have you heard the term kitchen cabinet before? Some people say a personal board of advisors. So for example, there are some people who come to you in your house. You don't serve them at the dining table. They come to you in the kitchen while you're cooking, right? They have such closeness of relationship with you. They have such bonding with you that they don't need to be handled so formally. So the people that can come into your kitchen, maybe you have friends that can even come into your bedroom because you have that type of closeness. So strategy number 1 I will talk about today is building your kitchen cabinet. People who can sit around, your kitchen or your personal spaces and strategize with you. The second strategy I'll talk about today is the importance of polishing your professionalism. A lot of us could be further along than we are. We could be further along, but we're not, simply because there are some aspects of how we roll, how we work, how we show up that is keeping us back. And then the last strategy that I'll talk about today is treating yourself like an asset. And hopefully we can do a bit of practical, especially when it comes to strategy number 2. Does that sound okay as a plan? Hope to be done within 40 minutes so we can have lunch and we can interact then. So, a lot of times, a lot of women know that they are made for more. We know that we've got potential. We know that it's time to level up. But often we've not really built a system for us to be constantly accountable to someone and constantly learning. I came with copies of my book. I think it's on the podium. I have copies of my book, The Leading Lady Way. And the chapter 2 of the book is really about this. I titled that chapter, You Cannot Be Your Best Self by Yourself. Some of what is happening to many of us is because there are advances in technology and AI, etc. We feel like we don't need nobody. How many of you have fallen into that trap before? I don't need anybody. I'll watch a video. I'll go to, and that is good. But there's something about having accountability relationships that for many of us, it's missing. And so the 3 categories of supporters that I talk about in my book, The Leading Lady Way, is mentors, coaches, and counselors. Mentors are people who are a little further along on their journey than you are, so you can learn from their experiences. And everyone who spoke today talked a bit about mentors. You can also be mentored by people you've never met. One of the women that I've learned vision casting, goal setting from, I learned from her totally through her teachings, her books, etc., and met her for the first time in person at one of her conferences 4 years ago. But I considered her a long-term mentor, mentoring me from a distance. And so because of advances in technology, you can be mentored by people that you haven't met by reading their books, right? But one of the things that I really want to encourage you to also consider is the other 2 classes of help. Who is counseling you and who is coaching you? In many organizations now, they want you to, be accountable to an exec, especially if they feel like you have a lot of potential for growth. And that's good too. But oftentimes life happens to us. How many of you has life happened to? Yeah. And I'm sure if I passed around the microphone, we would hear things. I know even in the introductions this morning, we heard about childlessness, grief and loss of a loved one. We've heard about different things. For me, for example, in 2017, we were blessed with our second child, our first son, and he was born with medical complexities. I never thought I would be the mother of a special needs child that's wheelchair bound and non-communicative. Never thought it. I am my big, ambitious self, trying to keep going, but I had to recognize that something was wrong. I needed psychological support. So counseling is something that oftentimes gets stigmatized in many of our cultures. I don't know if it's the same in East Africa, but in West Africa, oh my. And we get hyper religious as well. Everything is a demon and a witch. And so bind the devil. This thing, it's and I had to realize that I was going off the deep end, that I really needed someone who had expertise in managing thought life to sit down with me and help me talk through what was going wrong with me. The challenge with a lot of us is sometimes the self-awareness that this panel was just talking about, we don't do for ourselves. And so I highly recommend what Sumaya was talking about. How many of you have done psychometric testing for yourself? Do you know your personality type? There's so few hands in the room. I would encourage you to invest in that. Cicely, who was just speaking, says that she does the DISC profile. That's a very common psychometric test. There are others as well, some that you can even take online. But oftentimes, if you're trying to build a kitchen cabinet of people who can rally around you, support you, and help you, it is helpful when you understand the type of person you are. So for example, I know I have a choleric nature and a sanguine nature, but I'm also very cerebral. So sometimes things that are very obvious to some people, I need to be told. So in my kitchen cabinet are people who can say, I was on a call with one of them recently, and I said, you said something to me a few weeks ago. Can you go deep? She said, can't you see this person is jealous of you? And I said, this is someone I've been trying to keep in my circle, someone I keep trying to be friendly with and whatever. And she, as a third party, has watched us interact. And she said, Yawa, you are clueless. This person isn't reciprocating that. And the more I get pushed away by that person, the more I'm trying. And she had to call me out that actually, you need to stop this. So each of us has blind spots, and without your personality testing, you might miss what your blind spots are. So your kitchen cabinet are people who can help complement your blind spots. Your kitchen cabinet includes people who you can be real with. Do you have people who can tell you the truth? One of my kitchen cabinet members said, Yawa, I prayed for a long time that those glasses you used to wear would get missing because they did not suit you. They did not. The kitchen cabinet are people who see a picture of you and say, what is this outfit you are wearing? The challenge is, in order to be successful with this, you've got to be willing to be humble and open. A lot of young ones, we want mentorship, but we only want you to tell us how great we are. And I used to be very touchy that way because I grew up in an environment where I wasn't always constantly affirmed, so I couldn't take criticism. If people were telling me that it wasn't amazing, I would fixate on it and just obsess over the one negative thing that was said, and then I would find myself drawing away from that person. Have you ever done that before? Drawing away from truth tellers, drawing away from people who actually had the boldness and the courage to tell you what needed to be said. So as you are thinking about your kitchen cabinet, understand that you'll need your mentors, you'll need your counselors, you'll need truth tellers. Not everyone you went to school with, just because you go all the way back, is going in the same direction as you. One of the first things that I noticed when I started being a bit more serious with my career, serious with my goals, I realized that I lost a lot of friends. Has that happened to you before? Everybody likes the idea of you where you are because sometimes it makes them comfortable. Sometimes, they benefit from you being where you are. The truth is, you may also outgrow some of your mentors. You may outgrow some of the people who were once investing in you, and that's okay. So when mentors began to tell me things like, we see passion, but we see no strategy. We see that you're here, there, everywhere, but we see no plan. It meant that I needed to start surrounding myself with people who were stronger where I was weak. So as I look back over this past chapter of my career, I see that I've gone further with less effort because I've submitted myself to creating my own kitchen cabinet. Is this helpful? How many of you feel confident that you have a solid kitchen cabinet? Yeah. The too few hands are up. So part of what it helps you do, it helps you to triangulate conversations, right? It helps you to be able to say, do you have a few minutes? May I please talk to you about something? Or the last time I saw you, you told me this, this, and this. Do you know how my kitchen cabinet sticks with me? I give them feedback. So for example, one member of my kitchen cabinet lives here in Nairobi. So the other night I went to her house and I said, last time I was here, these are the notes. You said this, this, and this. I just want to give you feedback on what I did, what I didn't do, feedback on what worked, what didn't work. And these are the two things that are troubling my mind. What would you say? And I find that people who are busy and accomplished, if you can organize your thoughts before you sit in front of them, you get the most out of them. A lot of us in the room know we need mentorship, but we haven't been able to separate who's a mentor, who's a counselor, etc. And the challenge is, some people don't want to invest their time with you because you come and sit in front of them and you're telling them a whole life story that makes no sense. And what you want is emotional support, not strategy. So one of the things I had to learn is I take my emotional stuff to counselors. I pay for psychotherapy, especially when I feel I've gone through periods of time where I'm super agitated, or I'm noticing changes in my sleep or my nutrition and wellness. When I feel demotivated, I call up, I have 2 trusted psychotherapists that I said, I think I need a few sessions. And I schedule. And I said, this is what I'm noticing. And then they tease out what has happened recently. Is there a big disappointment that's occurred? Is there something? I arrived in Nairobi on Tuesday. Wednesday, I booked a session because I had a bit of anxiety around today's event. And then a couple of other things had occurred that I just needed processing. So sometimes it's not that you lack access to mentors, it's that you misuse the time that you have with them. So mentors, especially if they're busy, especially if they're accomplished, they give time and energy to people who help them understand what exactly are you looking for? What help do you need? Sometimes we spill the problem with no clear direction about what's needed. And so you use your mentorship time to just vent, and then now you wonder why they're not returning your calls anymore. Now you wonder why these people, she said she was a mentor and all of that, but she's not mentoring me. So mentoring looks very different from counseling. Some of us may need to go get the emotional stuff processed. So for those young women that I mentor, I let them know I love you dearly, but I got my own stuff going on. So I can give you numbers of psychotherapists who can really walk you through this. Give me headlines only, and I'll pray with you. But I also realize from my self-assessment, I'm a very empathetic person. So when you tell me your stuff, you've spoiled my day, because I've gone carrying it and I'm processing it. And I didn't even, it was counseling that helped me see that that was my problem. So the more you know about you, the more you know that who are the people who need to call you out. So for example, if you followed the news, there was a big tragedy that occurred in Ghana a few weeks ago. A helicopter crashed and it killed a few people who I didn't know deeply, closely, but were in my friends' circles. And I knew that I had client work, I had coaching work. You would have thought that I didn't live in Ghana, because I would shut off every news source until I got through some of the key work I was doing that week, because I could not afford to unravel. And some of us need the foundation of self-awareness so that we can pick and choose what environments do we spend our time in? Who belongs in the inner circle of friendships? And who are the people that maybe you check in only once in a while by text? Some people need to be loved from afar, and I suspect you know who they are. But you're afraid. They'll say, I'm not nice. They'll say, I'm no longer this or that. But any woman who's ready to prepare for prominence has to start being very deliberate about what kind of kitchen cabinet she's building. Is this helpful? So I want you to just start mapping for you right now. Who falls into mentor category? Who falls into potential counsel, therapeutic support category? Who are those who potentially would fall into the coaching category? And some of you in this room, you know it's time to level up, and you can't do it by mentorship alone. You actually need to invest in executive coaching. How many of you know Usain Bolt? He used to be the fastest man in the world. Have you seen his coach? His coach is pot-bellied, right? His coach doesn't look like he could even run to catch a bus if he needed to. But he knows how to get in Usain Bolt's head so that whatever tactic and strategy he needed to implement to become the world's #1 runner, it got done. Some of us, we know we are here in our career right now and we want to go there. A coach is a strategist, someone who knows how to get in your head and work with you on a plan to get you from where you are to where you need to be. Because sometimes it's not for lack of knowing what we need to do, it's just for lack of accountability. When I tune in twice a month to get on a call with my executive coach, the main thing I'm actually paying for is accountability, provocation, and feedback. Yes, you can chat GPT questions and get answers. Yes, you can read books, etc. But coaching, when you are ready to start getting counsel and advice that is tailored to you, and if you want to submit yourself to accountability to move far and fast, that's when you should start identifying coaches. How many of you have an executive coach or have been coached before? Okay. So majority of us, we call up and we talk to our girlfriend. And your girlfriend is probably at the same stage of her career as you. And you can only vent and she can only suggest. And I'm not saying friends don't give good advice. But I am saying that when you are preparing for prominence, you might need to be better supported. I like to use this phrase, are you being supremely supported? Because when I think of prominence, I think about royalty. I think about, if I were queen of my life, who would need to be serving me for me to continue to be queenly? So every palace has staff, right? And each staff has responsibility. Think, who do I need to bring around me to enable me to be supremely supported? So in the past couple of years, that's meant a few investments for me. I invest in executive coaching, so I'm regularly talking to my coach. Now, I'm someone who coaches other people, but I invest in my own coaching because, quite frankly, we are often pouring into others all the time, and very rarely do we have people pour into us. So we all need outlets for all of our stuff. So I really want to encourage you, those of you who are ready to move to the next level, you need to start mapping. I want you to think about a couple of names. I like 12 for each category because this is really you shortlisting, right? You might have lost touch with people who you felt like at one point in time were a real good role model to keep close. And it may mean that you need to reach out and see what value you can create for them so that they can be a bit interested in your life and want to continue to being available. So for example, the advisor kitchen cabinet member that I have here that lives in Nairobi, she's someone, when I first met her probably in 2021, I told her how greatly I admired her. I told her that I attended a session that she did, and these are the 3 things that came out, and I'm grateful for it. But quite frankly, people like that hear that all the time, don't they? Yeah. So do you know how I stood out from the crowd? When I knew I was coming to Nairobi, I said, I understand you're Nairobi based and I'm doing this and this. This is why I'm coming. I would like to come and greet you. And so I came bearing gifts. And then I had read a bit about some of what she was working on at the time, because I knew someone who knew her. And I said, I was thinking you, because of this, this, and this, might want to consider that. I created value for her. I didn't ask for anything. I just said I wanted to greet you. I brought you a gift to say thank you for that session I heard you on a few months ago. And there's this opportunity that I think you may want to consider, right? The opportunity worked out, and then I helped her prepare for the opportunity. In his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey talks about something called the emotional bank account. Oftentimes, we can't get people interested in what we want because we want to make a withdrawal where we've made no deposits. So oftentimes, if you're thinking, I want this person to mentor me, instead of go getting, think about what you can go giving. Because every executive, anyone who is significant, has some problem that perhaps you may be able to solve or speak to. I've learned so much by working for people that I consider mentors. I would volunteer time. Do you need a babysitter? Do you need something? Because it's in being in their environment that I learn by watching. So I really want you to start thinking, especially for those of us who are at early stages in our careers, be deliberate and write down names of people that you can probably start checking in with regularly. And by checking in, it's also checking on. I hope you're well. I saw you in the news, or I saw this, or I thought you might find this article interesting, or there's something happening that I thought you might want to know about. Is there anything I can do to help? Because part of how my kitchen cabinet has strengthened is because instead of going to get, I've been going to give. Is this helpful? All right. Strategy number 2, polish your professionalism. I love what the panel members were saying a few moments ago, especially about understanding the intercultural realities. Our world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of technology. We now see regularly what's happening in other countries. We now see regularly what's hot, what's not. We're all now using many of the same technological tools. But there's a disadvantage to that, especially after COVID, when many of us became so used to being on cameras and on Zoom, that they noticed that work was becoming informal. There was an informalization of the workspaces because most of us went to Zoom calls in our pajamas. We just became a little less formal than we used to. However, the world of business and the world of power errs on the side of formality. And I've been really, really looking at that in the lives of Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, especially those who are in emerging leadership. Because I recognize that some may be very technically smart, technically capable, some may be a little exposed, but they don't have the professionalism that makes people comfortable in taking them to higher heights. In Ghana, I was doing some consulting work for a company. They asked me to coach a woman who had been passed over for promotion before. How many of you have been passed over for a promotion before? Yeah. And oftentimes, these are the things that may have been at play that nobody wanted to say. These are often unspoken rules. The CEO of the company said to me, Yawa, we know she's due for promotion. We know it. She's actually one of our star players. But the promotion means that she will start representing the company. And we're not confident that she's our best ambassador. So they gave me a brief to work with her to polish her professionalism. And I could identify because I grew up with 4 brothers. I grew up playing soccer. Fun fact, I should have told you this morning. I grew up with 4 brothers. I have a deep voice anyway, and I was kind of rough around the edges.